when you filed your claim from the insurance company? How long did that take?
Well, I think I was really one of the lucky ones compared to others in the community because we did have a check within 90 days. It took probably another 4 or 5 months after that. As a result of Hurricane Charlie, there were so many businesses and individuals who were not getting claims quickly. I think that new legislation was passed at that time that now makes it so that the insurance company has to respond within I don't know if it's a 60 or a 90-day period. So that's been put in place. At that time, that was not there, and there were some businesses and individuals who were going a year or 18 months before they were getting any satisfaction from insurance companies. But you know, it takes a while to process a claim, and in the event of a hurricane, I mean, my insurance adjuster showed up at my door with a stack of photocopies of the front of 200 policies. He was brought in from another state. I think he was from Missouri. That's all he was provided with from the company was just that page one, had my address and my policy limits, and had to process 200 claims. It was overwhelming to them. And a lot of the ability to get funds back quickly depended on the ability of the business owner to recover records. And, you know, that was difficult for a lot of Charlotte County businesses because they didn't expect the storm to hit. They weren't as prepared as they should have been. So it does take a while.
Ms. Mize, I was going to ask you, following Hurricane Charlie, in your estimate, how long did it take the community or businesses to get back to some sense of normalcy? What was the experience in the community? How long does it, some businesses probably never came back, but of the businesses that did, was it a week, a month, 6 weeks, 6 months? I mean, how long was it? I'm sure it was a little different because you dealt with, from my understanding, a lot of businesses in that community.
Yes,
right
we
after
did.
That.
There were 700 commercial buildings in the path of the hurricane. Of those 700 buildings, commercial buildings, 12% of them were destroyed, 77 were damaged. So the recovery is going to be directly relationship to whether or not they had a building to be in, or whether they could find another building in order to relocate and reestablish. So based upon that, I would say that Cindy was actually probably one of the more exceptional folks in terms of her ability to get back up and running within 18 days. What we were told was there's 3 parts to a disaster. First it's relief, then it's recovery, and then it's rebuild. And right now we're in year 4 of a 5-year plan.
So you guys are still working on it. What do you find from businesses, small businesses? Is their biggest concern or their number one issue in terms of working with banks get back on their feet?
I think access to capital is a real serious issue, and I'm going to defer also to the other banker on our panel here, Mr. Brown. Access to capital is critical for the small business and for the individuals because of all the myriad of demands on that limited capital in a disaster. You're trying to put your house back in order. You're trying to put your business back in order. Access to capital. Those folks that had liquidity did the best. Would you, what do you think?
Absolutely, I would agree.
Yeah, that's why we're looking at one possibility is to have, you know, I know that small businesses are being taxed and don't have any excess cap. A lot of them are not even able to, you know, pay their bills. But the thought is that as these things get turned around back on their feet, maybe they'd have a fund where they could draw down but have something set aside because, you know, I've always heard, and people told me like 30 years ago, always try to have 1 year's living expenses. Now that doesn't happen to a lot of people, but have some kind of reserve set aside. But if we could do that on a tax deferred or something, it would give some opportunity. Kate, I just wanted to ask you, your business obviously a little different, unique than a lot of businesses in our area. How does this, what's your thoughts on how this would affect you if you had a direct hit in a hurricane, you know, that type of thing?
Well, hopefully with all our preparedness and our testing and our enhancements that we do on a regular basis, we won't be that much affected. But I see it also affecting the vendors that support me, the smaller businesses that are not in the business of doing disaster preparedness and detailed plans and testing the plans. I have a number of local vendors that I use, everything from my air conditioner vendor to my freezer maintenance, my generator maintenance. The list is very long, and I use all local local small businesses to support me, where we would run fine. However, the services that I depend on, the local vendors, I'd be creative to find alternate solutions. So this, I think, could encourage them to just think the disaster recovery, disaster plan, and take more time to put money aside where they might not have. As part of my plan, I have to take that into consideration and make sure I do have additional working capital. It could help me with adding better or doing different planning if I had additional tax-free funds available to me. So I think in two parts it could help.
Is there anything else based on what you've heard today that, we could make it better? What do you think about this all? I'm open to any idea, but I like kind of what the state's doing. What the state did, it seemed like it was a very successful program. Maybe there's a lot of partnerships federal and state has, and maybe that's also could be a partnership. And maybe instead of 25,000, you said proportionality.
Right.
Maybe if a business has got 83 employees, it's different than having 8. That maybe they can get up to 250 or something like that because they need more capital. But my thought is that Charlie, do you have?
I did have a thought on that for you. The SBA has done a good job of denoting what is considered a small business by industry. You can start there because that's based on sales typically. The other thing that you can do when you devise these limits is there's a margin of profit the RMA, Robert Morris and Associates, tracks by industry. And you just made me think about, when you talked about a year's worth of reserve, you might target by industry 90 days worth of operating expenses. And you might end up with something where this type of business would be eligible for that much in for a different dollar amount across the business. Mathematically, you could work your way back into this very easily using data that's already available.
Yeah.
I was just going to add to that I think it is very important to assess the need, and how you'll measure that is key, because my business and how I operate and the amount of funds I would need to get going, to replace a generator or to carry certain operating costs would be significantly larger than a smaller restaurant or something like that. Mm-hmm. And if you went, I think, by industry or somehow to measure, I think that's very important in the analysis, and also keeping it simple, that it was some of the panel members have made. If it takes too much to put in place, I'm not going to have the time to do it unless it's a good benefit.
Yeah. Well, just on my behalf, I just want to thank all of you for coming in. It's important. I know that as we look towards what's happening in New York and our country and the financial crisis, there's we're talking about, it's like a dumbbell, or a barbell. One side, we've got a lot of big businesses under a lot of pressure, but our small businesses that make up a lot of the job creation and really our vitality in this country. And I think the future, the way we compete with China and India, we've got to find a way with these big storms. Going into Houston, God only knows. Our community's a little bit smaller, but you look at a metro area, New Orleans and Houston, we've got to figure out a way to get these people back on their feet. So again, I like the idea that government got paid 96% back, or whatever that percentage was.
That's right.
So I think, and I know the chairwoman, we both want to find a way to help businesses get back on their feet, help them recover quicker, and I think the federal government has definitely a role to play. And the sooner we can get you back to work and start generating money, then we get more receipts up here. So it's a good thing. It's a win-win for everybody. But again, I want to thank you, especially being from our area, our district, for coming in, and appreciate your discussion. And I know you've taken time out of your schedule. So thanks, and we'll look forward to visiting with you a little more in the future. Thanks again.
Thank you.